Black Panther: Wakanda Forever comes out November 11th, 2022. So myself and Adan thought, why not go back to where Black Panther first made his MCU debut? Does it still hold up, or is it just a bore? Let's get into it. So before we get into our review, guys, if you want to learn how to save money in gas, groceries, restaurants, check the description below. It's not a sponsor. We don't get any kickback from it. It's just our saying thanks for our viewers of watching and listening. Also, you want to be a superhero? Check the description below on how you can save a life or two. Spoilers. Captain America Civil War came out in 2016. Again, that was the premiere or the debut of Black Panther in the MCU, but not just him. Do you remember who else showed up?
Spider-Man.
Spider-Man. That's right. Exactly. Sony gave the rights, well, rented the rights of using Spider-Man, Peter Parker, and Aunt May, which was exciting because we didn't just get one new character in the MCU. We have now three, if you count Aunt May.
Also Zemo, because technically we didn't have Zemo before.
True. That's exactly the villain. This is following pretty much straight after Captain America, the Winter Soldier, pretty much.
I'll give you that. Mm-hmm.
Which was a great one. And this is the second Russo brothers directorial film for the MCU because they knocked it out of the park with the Winter Soldier, and then they got rehired to do this. Now, I just finished rewatching it. I personally love this film on multiple levels. Again, the return of Peter, or the debut of Peter Parker, Spider-Man in the MCU, and of T'Challa and the Black Panther being in this film as well. The late Chadwick Boseman was phenomenal in this. The action in this was amazing. Did you rewatch it? Or are you just going off from memory here?
I did rewatch it, actually. So as far as Captain America movies go, because I do consider, even though I've had this argument where, is it really a Captain America movie? Because they pretty much had everybody in it. You might as well consider it like a sub-Avenger film, because it's really not Captain America. But of the Captain America movies, Winter Soldier definitely supersedes it. But
yes,
is it still good? I think it is. There's a lot of good things that happen in this movie. It's not perfect. The story, personally, for me, like the Civil War story, it was way too early for the Civil War to be done and too short of a storyline. Because I'm familiar with the Civil War in the comics, and that storyline was almost Infinity War epic. It was just huge.
It was several issues. It was across several storylines. Yeah. Almost every character in the MCU, or not the MCU, but in Marvel.
Except for the intergalactic versions. But everyone that was on Earth was pretty much involved in this situation.
I mean, do you remember how Civil War started in the comics?
It wasn't, what was it? It wasn't the New Mutants. Was it New Mutants? I think it was the New Mutants with a speedball.
I don't think so.
No, not Mutants. It was like not Thunderbolts.
No, not the Thunderbolts. It was like a third string, fourth string team.
It was like the B team or C team. And
they were doing a reality show.
Exactly. They kind of like Teen Titans style, but they were they were televising themselves, and they decided to take on a active mutant terrorist.
Well, a gang in that way. Yeah.
Yeah. And one of the characters was was a nuke or something like that. I'm really going by memory now.
Right.
And this guy pretty much self-destructs and takes out a school and a bunch of innocent populace. And that's when people decided to go, okay, this guy all caught on tape. They were pretty much, they're supposed to be heroes, but they're going out their way recklessly to do this stuff.
Right.
And that's when the government decided to step in. They involved Tony Stark. Tony Stark sides with Mr. Fantastic, Hank Pym, all the big brains.
Well, and to go back to a woman did approach Tony Stark, saying that similar to how it was in the movie, where a woman approaches him too, and saying my son died because of the recklessness and stuff like that. Who's going to watch them? Who's going to the Watchmen? Who watches the Watchmen? The DC storyline. It's like same thing here. Like who's gonna watch the superheroes when they go rogue or put them in check?
Exactly. And in this movie, it's more focused on like the Avengers more directly because of
Mm-hmm.
Sokovia, Ultron. She puts the blame on Iron Man specifically because of that, and rightfully so. Iron Man built Ultron. It got out of his control. He unsanctioned it. Sokovia pretty much got wrecked and destroyed. All the country nearby got destroyed. So it was a national disaster. Even though they
Right. And
saved the world, it was a disaster.
right in Civil War, well, not Civil War, but
That was in Age of Ultron.
right, but the MCU only has a handful of characters.
True.
Not like now where there's double that and soon
Yeah.
to be triple. So right now it's like that. And I agree. I think Civil War was too premature.
Or
But
like they could have titled it as something else. It didn't have to be Civil War
well, I
for
mean,
what they were going
especially
for.
correct. But again, you have Robert Downey Jr. and Chris Evans towards the end of their contract. And so what can they get the most out of them and stuff? And I totally agree. I don't think it should have been a Captain America piece. It should have been an Avengers piece.
Yeah.
Because the Avengers were in it, minus Thor and Hulk.
It just didn't feel like a Captain America film. Like it didn't feel like
Right.
he was the star of the film or it was the focal point. Yeah, it had him and Bucky, but everything
Right.
was so spread that it really just didn't feel like it.
I totally agree. Now, going back to the main focus, Black Panther,
Yeah.
the acting, his performance, like I said, was amazing, but it was for me the action.
Oh yeah.
His action, like every time he was on, be it Black Panther or T'Challa.
I mean, first of all, let's look at his build, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, like, one of the first things that almost every MCU actor or portrayer like does, like when they come in, they usually bulk up, gain size or whatever. He was trim and in shape, but he didn't look like he was like on the same body build as any of the Chris's. Take your pick of which Chris. They all pretty much just as big at this point. He was closer to the same build as maybe
Robert Downey.
Robert Downey or like
because he was thin, he was a small frame in that sense, but when he wore
Ant-Man's
the costume,
character.
but Ant-Man, he was in the movie, the solo movie, he was shredded
for like one scene.
Yeah, I know, but that's what they all do. They all get jacked just to be that shirtless scene. But when he was in that costume looked perfect.
Yeah, it looked on
was
point.
So comic book accurate. His neck, his traps, he had that V shape. He looked like a beast, and I loved it. Now, granted, his stunt double, his fight double, shorter, stockier, but you couldn't really tell. Granted, because he's wearing the uniform costume, but the flow of it and it was forgiving because of his height and compared to the other guy's height.
Well, that was the other thing. So let's talk about the fight style because there was aspects, and you can tell me if I'm wrong on this. I would dare say it was like there was attributes of like kung fu, maybe like a little bit. I felt like there was like one or two scenes where it kind of had like a capoeira move here or there.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's where you can be forgiving with your stunt double swap because his character as he fights is hunched, crouched in a lot of different positions and different movement styles. So it makes sense that like because his style is based off of animal techniques, and in the comics it's like it's its own style based on multiple styles culminated into one, like its own form of mixed martial arts. That's where it's really cool. You can kind of see that techniques here in this movie, like when he's doing when he's especially fighting against like Bucky and Hawkeye, like even the Hawkeye fight scene with him, like the way that he's dodging and catching the arrows.
Well, what I liked here is in the sense that the Russo brothers, they captured what Black Panther is about. In a sense, like his suit is with vibranium. Because when he's getting shot, it's like he's Superman. He's just bouncing off. He's not getting ricocheted back from the impact. It's just disintegrating upon impact. His cloth comes out. And prior to all this, the only martial artist that we had, because Honestly, I find it
I mean, you could argue Captain
irritating.
America, but
That's what I'm going to argue about because the thing is, how does a person from World War II know how to do all these kicks when all we've seen him do prior is box? When he's in the alleyway before he takes the juice, when he's hitting the bag, is just boxing. But during battles, fighting the Nazis, and here he's doing all these kicks and all this. Like, but there's no showing that. All right, fine. Be as that may. That's fine. Get over that, right? Sure. But then before that, we also had not part of the MCU, but they had Daredevil. I mean, I
I
believe
mean,
Iron
Daredevil
Fist
was
came
a
in.
good show at the time, but like I
Right, but
can't
not the
remember
show.
Iron Fist.
I'm talking about the fighting aspect of it,
Yeah, no, I
right?
get that. Yeah,
And the fighting in that was also well done. But Charlie Cox will fight, like hit the bag. You saw him like with terrible technique, terrible form. Then you saw him as Daredevil, all suited up, and the fight scenes are like flawless and smooth and acrobatic and all that stuff. I was like, okay, that's not Charlie Cox. That is definitely someone else. So seeing this and seeing how he moved, his stance, because if you notice, a lot of his stance was reminiscent of Bruce Lee. He'll come out with his hands out, showing his claws, but he'll get punch, he'll lean or shift back, have his hands in that position to fight.
yeah, I can see
And
that. Yeah,
when he did all that, I was like, yes, they got a right character because the comic books, Shang-Chi, Black Panther, Iron Fist, all had the influence of Bruce Lee, Chuck Norris, Jim Kelly. When these characters were developed, those around the same time those movies came out. And in the drawings, you'll see they'll copy a pose from Bruce Lee, from Jim Kelly, from Chuck Norris, and they'll put it into paper and put it as the character. So his fight scenes were amazing. And yes, Black Panther, he's skilled in multiple arts. So you see him like doing the tiger technique. You see him doing capoeira. You see him doing Wing Chun. You see him doing all these type of moves. And it was great. This movie, like again, you're right. Winter Soldier, out of the Captain America movies, that's the best one.
yeah.
This one is right behind in the sense of the action aspect.
I still like this one better than the original Captain America. And I know some people that will put the original Captain America above it, but I still will go for this one.
Watching again, there are some flaws. There are some continuity stuff that doesn't make sense,
True,
but it's still good. It's not as flawed as other Marvel projects or DC.
true.
Now, talk about the action. What was your favorite action scene or maybe sequence?
There's one that's probably going to be like everybody's in the top three. Is the airport scene is probably everybody's top three. Like it,
Right.
regardless.
I forgot to count how many action scenes are, but
You
there's
slipping.
several. I know there's several. They're pretty long each scene,
If you're
relatively.
counting the sequences, yeah, they're pretty long. I would say the Captain America Bucky chase scene is one of my favorites.
Oh my god, yeah, mine too.
Going from Captain America fighting Bucky in the apartment to the stairways,
Well, they're not
jumping.
actually fighting. They're not actually fighting. They're fighting the cops or the SWAT team.
Yeah, no, I'm not disagreeing on that. I'm
Oh,
saying like they're fighting in the sense they're fighting against the other soldiers and SWAT teams.
hmm
But
hmm
then it goes from there seamlessly into the jump from another building, and then only to be greeted by Black Panther, our first real introduction of the character,
right.
because we see T'Challa not as the Black Panther prior, and then
hmm
he's going to town with Bucky, and then it goes into the car chase scene
Right. And motorcycle. Right.
in a
Yeah.
motorcycle, which I always love a scene. There's only been a handful of movies that I can remember where they have like a person running and you see them catch up to a car or pass a car. Terminator 2, Underworld, and now Civil War.
Right.
And every time I see something like that, I'm like, movie magic. It looks fantastic when it's done. Because you see like Bucky and
hmm
T'Challa, they're just running down, passing cars, and there's Captain America doing the same. And they're
hmm
obviously it's cinematography. It shows you how well past they are everybody else physically
Right.
just by that.
But funny on that, I do find it hysterical that they can run so fast, right? On that scene.
Yeah,
And it's done well. But in the airport, they're taking forever to get to the Quinjet.
Oh yeah,
They're
absolutely.
they're jogging or walking sometimes. And I was like, but wait a minute, you just guys ran through traffic faster than the cars, and you're like taking forever to get to the Quinjet. I was like, oh, all right, okay. But yes, I agree. Like that scene, the whole scene, which was like a whole thing, it felt like 15 minutes, probably even longer or maybe shorter. Since I think it was the German police that came in, all that to the end where they get arrested. That was insane. That was some great action choreography, the tempo, the pace, the movements. It
It
was
had the tension because
mhm,
you were like when your first time watching that and you're seeing those scenes and it's going from one thing to the other. Honestly, you're gonna be at the edge of your seat, going like, "Holy crap!" Like they're really going at it and back to
mhm,
back. And obviously, it's an MCU film, but like, and you're not even maybe halfway through the film. You know there's more, but at the same time, you're like, it felt almost as tense as that first time you meet Winter Soldier. You know, like when he's
right.
attacking them on the highway, which is also a
Mhm.
very intense scene
Which is another great
in
fight scene. Yeah.
comparison. Absolutely. When he's coming at them with the knives. And I'm comparing that because that's a good comparison to me. Like you want something that's going to be tense. You're going to have moments where they can do close combat, which they did, and then have moments where they can pull away
Right.
and still
Well,
go into that.
in that scene, you have multiple storylines, if you will, going on. You have the German police trying to arrest Bucky. You
Hmm.
have Bucky trying to avoid being arrested. You have Captain America trying to save his best friend from the police and to find help for him also. Then you have a new player, Black Panther, coming in trying to take off the head of Bucky, if you will. And then you have Cap trying to stop that from happening as well. So, like, Cap is protecting Bucky from two threats, the cops and Black Panther. And you have Bucky trying to avoid being killed by Black Panther, arrested by the cops, or wherever Steve wants to take him.
Yeah.
And that is like happening right there. Like you're trying to like who are you gonna root for? Are you rooting for the well, definitely not the cops, but you're rooting for either Black Panther to get him or Steve to protect him or Bucky to come out of danger all the way. Excuse me. Then you have Falcon too, trying to help the situation or help Cap be successful in his goal. So you have multiple things happening there.
What was the scene for you though? What stood out? What's
That
the
was
stood
it.
out
That
fight
was
scene?
it.
That was the one.
That was the one too. I mean, there's some great scenes. I do like the one also where Bucky turns from Zemo, giving those commands, and then you have Robert Downey, you have Iron Man, you have Black Widow, you have Agent 13, you have T'Challa right there, not as the
Oh,
Black Panther,
oh,
but
you don't mean that he
yeah,
turns from Zemo. He becomes controlled by Zemo.
what did I say? I thought I said that's what I
He
said.
turns
No,
from Zemo. Like, well, that sounds like he turned away from Zemo.
no. Like where Zemo turns him.
Yeah, yeah.
With the passwords or the controlling words. It all starts with him fighting Steve, and Steve's trying to protect. Protect. He's not in his armor. He doesn't have his shield, but he's trying to not to engage, but he has to defend himself. And then when he starts coming in, he only has a he only has a glove. But then he gets taken to the side, but which was cool because luckily he was able to deflect that shot. And then where the Chala coming in and jumping and entering and doing those side kicks, and it just felt like very again another a scene from Game of Death with Bruce Lee. It was just like a ballet with those two. Now I do find it funny, and I wish they put it in her movie in a sense instead of what they went with in the Black Widow. Like she says, "Don't you at least remember me?"
That's true.
To Winter Soldier. Like, what's that story about?
So
Like when
in the comics, there is history between the two
well,
of them.
of
Like,
course that.
and she was
But
familiar with his character in Winter Soldier before Captain America was. She knew of him.
right, I understand that. But the thing is, that's a missed opportunity in the Black Widow film.
Oh, I'm not disagreeing. I'm just clarifying for our viewing fans.
Like with a Black Widow, they could have done like jump scenes in the sense of like, okay, here, boom. They did a flashback when she was a kid, so they could have done a scene where like she meets Hawkeye. She could have done a scene where she meets Winter Soldier.
There could have expanded on her background. in so many other ways than what they did.
Right. Perfect missed opportunity. But that's another scene that I did enjoy. I mean, all the action they did here was great. I do like when they're in the first action scene with Wanda destroying the building, like all that happening when they're trying to save the hostages and all the stuff.
Yeah.
That was great too. You can see the teamwork there happening. You can see that they're working together, and it's nice. And then, unfortunately, Crossbones, commits suicide.
Technically, I get what, and this is just going into the whole Sokovia Accords thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I get why they did it, because technically, coming off of Age of Ultron, she's a national criminal or terrorist. She never got convicted or tried.
Same thing with Hulk, in the sense of like he is one mass of destruction. He destroys everything he touched in New York, Sokovia. Like, yeah, he is a threat too.
Here's where you can get into the debate here. Like, the Hulk was attacked and retaliated in defense. That can be argued. Where she literally stole weapons and killed people and did other stuff.
No,
So
right. But what I'm saying though is, like, regardless, like with the Hulk, that he crashed into buildings, whatever, just to get to, for him to smash or to destroy, he did all that. So he was kind of reckless. You're not wrong in what you're saying in the sense of where she was, yes, a criminal. She was wanted, but since she became an Avenger in the sense of turn her life into good, it was overlooked in that way. It's like, fine. Or if you're saying, or like defecting to
yeah,
America. But yeah, you're absolutely right.
and which can go into the whole argument of Zemo, like why the empire of the supers, the empire of the Avengers, is really what's wrong, and that needed to be to fall down, because you're talking about these gods that live amongst people that think themselves better than them at everybody else.
Right.
We're kind of digressing, but I mean, it's like,
Right. But
this is a point of the movie that I thought was an
going
interesting
going
topic.
to Zemo's end game or point of view, do you think that he should have went after Winter Soldier in that program, or should he have gone after Wanda?
This is where the plot hole happens. Like, why choose the one versus the other?
Well, I'm saying like right, because he's from Sokovia, is he not?
He's from Sokovia, yeah, but
And his family died there because of what happened with the Age of Ultron.
again, this is where the plot hole happens, and they kind of patch it in Winter Soldier, Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Because I remember for years after watching Civil War, I'm like, cool, I get Zemo got the information. I got information that was leaked out because of the events of Winter Soldier and Black Widow. He's like, I found out this information because she leaked it out for the world. And like, I'm just happen to be really skilled. He's like, I'm Liam Neeson from Taken. I have a particular set of skills. So, okay, we'll give you some bias, but like, you choose these things. When you watch Falcon and Winter Soldier, you come to find out this guy was a step beyond Liam Neeson from Taken. He was involved in the underworld. He had intel and information from a lot of resources. And of course, he had the Zemo mask in that show. So Civil War makes more sense for Zemo when you include that series. If you don't include that series, Zemo as a character makes less sense for his plot.
It's okay.
Yeah, well, at
I'm
least
just saying because
to me,
right.
yeah.
But I'm saying, like, you lost your family, your wife and child.
They're all guilty at some point.
They're all connected, right? But she was the one that was helping Ultron succeed.
But you could also make the argument that he's targeting Tony Stark more because of the fact that Tony built Ultron.
Okay.
So, like, what will hurt Tony more? Well, the people that you work with know about the death of your parents, and they hold that information against you.
Fair enough. I'll give that to you.
I'll mark down my board.
And the last one I did like, I mean, the whole airport scene was,
of course,
good. And the tie-in with, again, Star Wars with The Empire Strikes Back.
It ties into Star Wars Empire Strikes Back.
Because Peter says it.
You remember that old film?
Right. And that's things, I can't help but get, feel a little from that, because it's like, that's my generation. I mean, here's a kid who's like, 40 years younger than me, or not 40, 30 years younger than me, going off.
Yeah, it's over 40. that whole entire sequence at the airport is great. And there's almost, you're never gonna relive that moment. When I remember being in the theater, and I suspected it. I had an idea that this was gonna be like because I remember that people were talking, oh, Ant Man may be in it, Black Panther should be in it, and I know
Hmm.
like they may have another guest, and then I'm like, oh, it can't be Spider-Man, but we want it to be Spider-Man, and then Spider-Man shows up, and you see him on for the first time, and the eyes go in and out.
But that was in the previews too. We saw that in trailers.
True.
So that wasn't that new. But what we got was something phenomenal. And you saw his spider sense kick in, even though he never called it a spider sense. And he never got his history, his origin story, even though he almost did. And Tony cut him off. And in the airport where a door or something gets thrown at him, and before it goes at him, he's like, uh-oh. So he knows it's coming. And then he throws her right back to Winter Soldier.
They did a great job of showing what he's capable of doing. Like when he
Right.
caught Winter Soldier's punch in
Right.
mid throw. He goes, you
Mhm.
and like it was nothing. He's like, you got a metal arm, dude. That's so cool.
Right. And they do a comparison. Someone did a comparison, or another reviewer or something like that, where in Winter Soldier, when he punched Steve with the shield, like Steve is like taken back and like absorbing all that impact
hmm
and struggling with that, where Spider-Man casually caught it and having a calm conversation about it.
Yeah.
And Winter Soldier's like, what the hell? But to fast forward, the other action scene I did, because it was very reminiscent to the comic books and of Civil War, is where Steve and Iron Man are fighting.
Yes. They even had the pose, the classic pose.
Right.
And
Of the
I want to say
blast
that
and the
was
shield.
from the comic where they were doing
Hmm.
like the blast and the shield like that. And of course, that one moment where it was Steve, Bucky, and Tony,
Iron Man.
all
Yeah.
three of them fighting. The synergy between Bucky and Steve against Tony was, even though it was like very very short. That was they showed that one clearly in the trailers, but it was just like beautiful.
Right. See, it's like something like that doesn't make sense to me either, where they did in the Winter Soldier, so like that's like, but how does Bucky know how to handle the shield so well? We never saw him learn in the original Captain America, the first Avenger. We never saw any training into Winter Soldier. He just catches it and throws it the same accuracy and all this stuff. We don't see him training out in his, lack for a better word, headquarters, when he, because all he has is his rifles and his firearms, stuff like that. But we never see him, Bucky, that is, training or handling the shield. But he takes it up like second nature. And something like that would have been nice and cool to do, like a flashback here and there in the Winter Soldier, to show that, where, like, Steve can be remembering the times, and like where Bucky's like, hey, how's that shield here? Like, it was like,
That or in the Falcon and Winter Soldier if they had something like that.
but you see Sam, who's been hanging with him, uh,
Practices.
Captain. No, I'm talking about in the movies. Like, they have a relationship themselves, right?
Yeah.
Sam and Steve. Obviously, he didn't teach him how to handle the shield because he was struggling. He was practicing. But yet Bucky knows how to do it. I mean, even in the comics, when Bucky got the mantle, he had to learn.
Yeah, I think the only one that didn't really have to learn was Hawkeye. Hawkeye was like, I'm just that good with throwing things
Right.
and accuracy that he was able to, because Hawkeye took up the mantle for a short while.
In the comics, yeah.
Yeah, and he was able to pull it off like no one knew that he was in Captain America kind of situation.
I think because of the height, or something, the height or build.
It was both the build and the skill. Because let's be honest, Hawkeye is in the comics anyways badass when it
Right.
comes to skill. But honestly, when you're talking about like characters that could take up the mantle, and this leads into Falcon and Winter Soldier, yeah, you're right. It doesn't make sense like who can grab the shield and all of a sudden know how to wield the shield. They made that a point of discussion in Falcon and Winter Soldier. Like a U.S. agent tried to wield the shield. They show him throwing it, but it was more like throwing it as a projectile weapon, not as a ricochet deflective weapon. So like it'll get stuck in walls. Even when he got his super strength enhancement, it was pretty much like throw, doesn't really bounce, it just like lands in the walls and gets stuck. It was kind of weird that they never really show that for Bucky's character, like, or even explain, like, even in like casual discussion, how's it you're so good with the shield? Why you learn so much with the shield? Sam, it makes more sense for Sam because Sam actually practiced and learned. That's going into the show. So coming into Winter Soldier, Civil War, 100%. I'm going to have to agree in the sense that, yeah, that's a little bit of a plot hole thing. You could argue why he's able to catch the shield in Winter Soldier and maybe deflect it is because he's seen how Captain America throws, how Captain America does his things. And it could be also argued that he was trained over the years because he's essentially an assassin for Hydra all this time. As they thaw him out, each time he gets more and more training, and he learns a few skills here and there. But that's it. I'm just gonna say that you can go with that.
Okay, fair enough. One of the funny things or weak moments in this, I felt, is how without a shield, that Bucky was able to deflect bullets left and right as if he had a shield.
He used his metal arm, his metal hand.
I understand that, but the thing is, that hand is a lot smaller than a freaking shield, and he's going like this, where the guy could go change the angle or change the angle.
Oh no, absolutely. The guy could have easily gone for a body shot.
Right. Or like you see him, like he puts his arm up, it's like he's as if he has a shield, but I was like, but wait a minute. That's very Wonder Woman. But the bracelets.
True. I mean, like he had a big arm. He like that covers like the head
right,
at least.
I understand that, but the thing is, his hand is up, blocking whole body, the rest of the body exposed, the legs exposed, all that. I was like,
granted, like they're all aiming for the headshot. Classically trained because people will go for like head, body head.
Right, but the thing is that cops are usually hit the bigger target. Body is the bigger target.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
But again, that's there's more, but that's the one that I really was like, wow, that made no sense. It probably, to me, it would have been more like, I guess not detrimental, but like more intense if he got hit, in the leg or like side.
Catch him injured or something like that. Yeah.
It's like, yeah, and also that talking about injuries, he's falling left and right in the street. Like when the Black Panther takes him off the bike and he's rolling and he gets up like unscathed. I was like, but I don't know, his skin was bulletproof. But
I don't know about bulletproof, but like he is
I'm just
essentially
saying,
a subpar Captain America.
Right, but Captain America was bruised. He had a few when they show him later, he's all like beat up or bruised up. But anyway, yeah, that was one of my things. And there's other ones too, but not as major or obvious as those.
As far as there's, if we're counting Black Panther scenes, there's really only 3 fight scenes for Black Panther because they're like it's the airport, the escape scene, and the chase scene.
Right. So how many? There's like what 5, 6 scenes all together with dialogue and then action because
it's like 3 scenes for action and then 3 additional scenes for dialogue and whatnot for T'Challa. And really, that's what we were looking. The reason why we chose this movie is because it's a taste of what Black Panther is. It wasn't his central focus point. Mm-hmm. He had more scenes than Peter Parker did. Just a taste to get us really hyped for Black Panther.
And other films, because he was also in
Infinity War
and also Endgame, all the stuff. And then he also did the voices for the What If series.
Absolutely.
So great movie. Even though I got like 7 out of 10 or 7.5 out of 10, I think this is great. Again, yes, it doesn't match the same level of Winter Soldier, but you have the great introduction of Black Panther as well as Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Having those two in there, like, you don't really think about like, oh, wow, they got 2 big names in this one film. And they did a great job of bringing those 2 characters. You got the feel for them. You got the basic understanding.
And I would dare say like the concern of like, oh, Spider-Man's in it with Black Panther. Black Panther is going to be overshadowed by Spider-Man. In some ways he was, like, let's be honest, we're all like big Spider-Man fans. But the portrayal, the acting, and the scenes that were there with Black Panther kind of stole it back in a lot of ways. Like when if you're rewatching it now, minus the hype of when you first saw the movie, and you're rewatching it now, Spider-Man's there, that's cool. But when Black Panther's there, like he's kind of like you're focused on what's happening with Black Panther.
He's a scene stealer.
Absolutely. Like even the moment where he's like being shot with the stingers from Black Widow. And he's like trying to chase after and just misses the wheel of the jet as it's flying off. Like you can see that it's like the character is really trying to get things done. Oh, was it?
Right, because he's so focused on getting revenge for his father.
And he's kind of like a smart ass too, because like what was that scene where, and there's the airport scene where he goes, I don't think I ever introduced myself.
Oh,
My name's
I
my
don't care.
he
Yeah,
goes, my name's Clint. It's like I don't care.
that's a little bruise on the ego.
Exactly.
But again, the way they captured him, his Chadwick's acting portrayal, his own fighting, because he has some good fighting movements as well, Chadwick. But again, with the ad with the stunt double, that combination, that flow, it made it believable. I only know it's a stunt double because I saw
The extras.
not the extras. I saw a video where he's looking at fights and they're breaking it down and they show the scene from Winter Soldier and he's like, that was me. This shot took 2 weeks to do. So that's the only reason I was like, wow, they did a really good job of having that nice flow of movement of because sometimes, like I said, you can tell when it's a stunt double and you can tell when it's the original person or the actor.
Yeah.
I had trouble because again, Chadwick, what he did against Winter Soldier as T'Challa was believable. It looked like he knew it for a long time. It did not look like he was just taught like 2 seconds before the films started to rolling.
It was an
So
Iron Fist.
I don't think any other project can be Iron Fist. I mean, Iron Fist looks like he can get beat up by anyone, and
Pretty
he
much.
pretty much does. Anyway, after watching this movie is about what 8 years old?
Yeah.
22. Yeah,
No,
8 years
no,
old.
actually, it came out
2016.
2016. So 6 going on 7.
That's right. 6 years. I can't count. So 6 years, right? Does it still hold?
I would say yeah.
I agree. It still holds. It still feels fresh. Is it worth the watch? Most
Yes.
indubitably, it is worth the watch, especially if you're a Spider-Man fan, especially if you're an Iron Man, Captain America, Ant-Man, Vision, Black Widow,
We'll
and Black
include a
Panther.
Hawkeye in there that no one gives credit
All,
for.
right. If you're a fan of all those guys, you're gonna love it. War Machine. Let's give his due. I mean, I agree with you in the sense this should have not been called Captain America. It should have been called just Avengers Civil War or just Civil War.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's a Marvel title, it's a Marvel separate, but I
Or
guess they
just
wanted
come up with a new title altogether. Doesn't have to be Civil War. Well, I think around that time, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, like around that time, Batman versus Superman was coming out too. You know, Marvel and DC, they're always doing shit that's competitive with each other. And I feel like, oh, you're coming out with Batman versus Superman, you want a big conflict movie? We'll see you with Civil War. That's how I feel like that came about.
Yeah, you're right. 2016 was the same year.
Ah, money.
Right. But they're always trying to. I mean, DC is always trying to up Marvel, and Marvel has a formula that has been successful
Yeah.
since Iron Man. Not all of them have been home runs. There are some that were, but for the majority of things, Marvel knows how to tell a story. They know how to keep us engaged. From the Captain America titled films,
Of the 3,
and there's three.
we pretty much called it.
So okay, so Winter Soldier is the top one. Then you have Civil War, and then the first Avenger.
Yeah, that's how it was for me. Like the first Avenger never really hit home to me. I just never felt that involved with the first Captain America. Now, granted, maybe if I rewatch it, I might have a different opinion, but
I do like it, so I'm kind of torn. I just the one that bothers me is how Bucky
dies.
fell. Well, he doesn't really die, so I can't really say that. But how Bucky falls, because I would prefer him falling, trying to disarm one of the bombs
You
instead
wanted
of falling off a tree.
the
More
cliche
more more
cartoon
comic book.
Captain America.
Well, the comic book accurate because they were both on a jet trying to disable a bomb.
I mean, there's a couple
Steve,
different versions. Like one version, Bucky kicks Captain America off,
but the
and
thing is, he tried to, and he was stuck. His sleeve was stuck. So, I mean, to me, in comparison to the original, the first Avenger, to me, I find that lame. He
yeah,
just slipped.
he had the Black Panther fall. That's what he did do. They both fell into icy ravine.
That's true. That's true. Let's end it here on our marvelous review of Captain America Civil War, the debut of Spider-Man and Black Panther in the MCU. We both think it holds up. We both think it's definitely worth the watch, definitely worth the own. And we're looking forward to see what's going to happen with Black Panther, Wakanda Forever. In that one, we have the introduction of
Namor,
the Submariner. So, and I love what I've seen, his costume, his look. I love it. Maybe some people won't because it's not comic book accurate, but you have to make it a little different to not to have the comparison to Aquaman. Yeah, I'm just too I'm excited to see what's going to happen. All right, and we will do a review on that as well as Black Panther, the first solo film or solo project.
yes.
So, guys, that was our marvelous review of Captain America: Civil War. Until next time, will be the next time. I'm Angel.
I'm Adan.
Love you, bro.
Love you, bro.